The emptiness you feel is the silent cry of a soul trapped by the fear of making mistakes. It's not about what you do, but what you silence. In this space of spirituality and personal development, we will dive into the profound dance between the pursuit of perfection and the freedom to be imperfect. Reconnect with your essence, embracing the inner transformation that fear tries to hide. It's an invitation to the awakening of consciousness, where healing begins in the acceptance of what hurts. There's a whisper in your soul yearning to be heard, a song that the fear of not being perfect stifles. Perhaps you're going through a time where everything feels meaningless, or where the sensation of being stuck, unable to act, has become constant. It's as if an essential part of you has been silenced by imperfection, or by judgment, whether external or, often, internal. This is perfection paralysis, a little-known but deeply lived concept. It's the relentless pursuit of an unattainable ideal that prevents us from living in the present, from experiencing the flow of life in its fullness, in its natural rhythm. In this spiritual awakening encounter, we invite you to a deeper look, an inner listening. We will unveil how this tireless quest for perfection can become an invisible barrier, a veil that obscures your true wisdom and your ability to flow with life. It's an invitation to kindness with the present moment, so that presence becomes the fertile ground where your soul can, finally, breathe. Delving deeper into this perception, we realize that the weight we carry echoes from a much profounder silence. The feeling of being stuck, unable to act, resonates in many hearts. It's an echo of the soul silenced by the fear of imperfection, of external judgment, and more cruelly, of our own inner critic. This is the essence of perfection paralysis, the relentless pursuit of an ideal that, paradoxically, prevents us from taking the first step. It's like a seed that dares not sprout for fear of not being the perfect flower. It refuses to manifest, losing the chance to fulfill its higher purpose. It's not about what happens outside, but what vibrates within, what the soul whispers and the body hears. This is a pain that contemplative spirituality helps us name, a path to emotional healing through the recognition and deep validation of emotions. The acceptance of the fertile void becomes the womb of the invisible, a space for life to manifest, even with its imperfections. Allow yourself to be vulnerable, for that is where authenticity flourishes and inner transformation begins. At the core of this paralysis, we find the root of many existential anxieties: inner disconnection. Where there should be fluidity and a natural rhythm, there is a rigidity imposed by the mind that seeks to control the uncontrollable, life in its spontaneity. Introspective and sensitive people often experience this pain more acutely, as their keen perception makes them more vulnerable to the inner voices of self-criticism and the projections of judgment. It's a state of emotional exhaustion and spiritual isolation, even when everything seems right on the outside. Listening to the soul becomes fundamental here, an invitation to deeply validate emotions, recognizing pain with sensitivity and truth. It's not a flaw, but a symptom of a system that, in attempting to protect us, traps us. Ancient wisdom reminds us that the flow of life is intrinsically imperfect, and that beauty lies precisely in this constant change, like a river that meanders to teach gentleness. Accepting that not all pain is punishment, some are invitations, is the first step to untying these invisible knots that bind the heart. This rigidity that traps us echoes an ancient parable, that of the seed that, in its fear, refuses to bloom. Imagine the seed. It contains within itself the full potential of a majestic tree, of a vibrant colored flower. But what if this seed, for fear of not being the perfect flower, of not reaching a preconceived ideal, refused to sprout? It would remain there, inert, suffocating its own potential, never fulfilling its nature to manifest and beautify the world. This simple, yet profound, metaphor mirrors our own experience. How often does the fear of not being good enough, of not being acceptable, paralyze us, preventing us from expressing our inner voice, from living our truth? This pursuit of an unattainable ideal deprives us of the experience of the present, of the simple act of being and flowing with life, like a river that teaches effortless fluidity. Taoism, through Lao Tzu, teaches us the wisdom of non-forcing, the path of flow, the acceptance of the intrinsic nature of things. True wisdom does not lie in the absence of mistakes, but in the courage to try, to expose oneself, to allow the soul to reveal itself in its raw, authentic beauty. The void is not absence. It is the womb of the invisible. The seed is an archetype of the personal development process. It reminds us that life is a cycle of death and rebirth, of surrender and flourishing, often hidden in the darkness of the earth before emerging into the light. Just as the seed must surrender to the natural process of germination, detaching from its initial form to transform, we too are invited to release our attachment to control and to the idealized image of ourselves. Letting go is like opening the hands from an invisible knot that held the heart. The fear of sprouting, of not being the perfect flower, reveals a deep resistance to our own cyclical and impermanent nature. The wisdom of Vedanta and Buddhism invites us to observe impermanence as a universal law, and to accept the flow of life without attachment to the final outcome. This surrender is not passivity, but an active form of presence, where meditation becomes a practice of transformative silence, allowing inner listening to deepen and the self to reconnect with its truth. It is in the stillness of the inner cave that the seed finds the strength to break its shell, not by an act of force, but by surrender and trust in the vital process. And as we allow ourselves to sprout, even with imperfections, we discover that true strength lies not in never falling, but in the courage to rise and expose ourselves, embracing vulnerability as the greatest teacher. Vulnerability, often seen as weakness, is, in truth, a path to authenticity and a deeper awakening of consciousness. It is in the permission to make mistakes that the greatest strength resides. Carl Jung shows us that the integration of the shadow, our imperfections and flaws, is essential for the process of individuation, for us to become whole beings. He who fears error fears life. Making mistakes is not a failure, but an intrinsic part of growth, a silent teacher who guides us towards self-knowledge. The scars we carry are not marks of shame, but testimonies to our capacity for overcoming, for resilience. You are not broken. You are in transformation. Each misstep is an opportunity to refine inner listening, to realign thoughts, emotions, and behaviors to co-create a new internal reality. Authentic spirituality invites us to honor this journey, to understand that not all pain is punishment, some are invitations. Stoic philosophy, with masters like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, offers us a powerful perspective on active acceptance. For them, it is not what happens to us that defines us, but our response to it. Error, from this perspective, is not an enemy to be avoided, but an opportunity to exercise emotional lucidity and practical wisdom. It is an invitation to compassionate philosophical questioning. What is this experience trying to teach me? The inner path is paved by these imperfections that become lessons. People who have experienced loss or major internal transitions deeply understand that life is a sequence of challenges that, when faced with presence, generate inner strength and emotional balance. Neuroplasticity, a scientific concept, dialogues with this wisdom by showing us that the brain has the ability to reorganize itself, to create new connections from experiences, including negative ones. Thus, vulnerability becomes a portal to the neuroplasticity of the soul, rewriting limiting beliefs and allowing the soul to expand beyond the boundaries of fear. Osho spoke of meditation as an inner revolution, and it is in this fertile silence that the acceptance of what hurts transforms into a field of healing. And in embracing this vulnerability, in recognizing error as a teacher, we begin to dance with the now, unraveling the most beautiful paradox, that of perfection residing within imperfection itself. And here lies the great paradox. The greatest perfection resides in the acceptance of imperfection and the continuous flow of learning. Eckhart Tolle, in his teachings on presence, reminds us that life happens in the now, and it is in this present moment that we find true peace and the dissolution of the ego that yearns for an unreal ideal. True wisdom is not in avoiding mistakes, but in learning from them, in embracing them as an essential part of our journey. It's like an artist who, when painting, doesn't fear an imperfect brushstroke, knowing that it is in the process, in the fluidity of the gesture, that the work of art reveals itself in its uniqueness. The universe listens to you when you learn to listen to yourself. The river of life does not flow in a straight line. It meanders to teach gentleness. It is this reconnection with a natural rhythm of things that frees us from the shackles of expectation and opens us to the beauty of being human, complete in our imperfection. The paradox of imperfect perfection invites us to let go of the tyranny of should be and embrace the spontaneity of simply being. Alan Watts, with his Eastern philosophy integrated into Western life, encouraged us to perceive non-duality, the union of opposites, where light and shadow coexist and complement each other. Life is not a straight ladder. It's a river that teaches effortless fluidity. This perspective helps us reprogram limiting beliefs, understanding that emotional healing is possible even in the deepest pains: grief, separation, illness, depression, financial difficulties. There are no shortcuts, no instant miracles, but a real process, often slow yet true, of personal development. It is an invitation to practice spontaneous gratitude, not only for blessings but also for challenges, as they are the catalysts for our inner transformation. When we allow ourselves to be imperfect, we open space for authenticity and for a spirituality lived in daily life, without performances or fantasies. It is presence in every step, in every breath, that guides us back to the temple that dwells in the silence of the chest. As we surrender to this imperfect dance of the now, a long silenced voice begins to rise, the voice of our own being, inviting us to the deepest reconnection with the truth that dwells within us. Perfection paralysis is not the end, but a profound invitation to the awakening of consciousness. Embrace gentleness with the now. Breathe consciously, like opening the soul's windows to the wind of presence. Ask yourself, what if the pain that confuses you today is, in fact, your soul's language trying to guide you? This is a practice of inner listening, of allowing spiritual truth to manifest. Remember, all healing begins with the acceptance of what hurts. Your biology responds to your spirituality. The greater purpose is not to avoid stumbles, but to walk with self-development, with an open heart for inner transformation, understanding that life is a constant learning, an uninterrupted flow of being and becoming. The soul is not in a hurry. It has rhythm. Reconnecting with inner truth involves validating our emotions. It is in this space of welcoming, free from clichés or ready-made formulas, that healing becomes possible. Silent wisdom guides us, reminding us that the fertile void is not absence, but the womb of the sacred, from which everything can be born. Buddha, in his original teachings, spoke of suffering, impermanence, and compassion as keys to liberation. Wisdom is not in denying what hurts, but in moving through it with consciousness, understanding that our strength lies in the totality of the human experience. This channel acts as an emotional and spiritual safe harbor, offering spiritual clarity and inner strength, far from empty promises or superficial spirituality. The practice of conscious silence, observing nature as a living expression of the sacred, and self-listening invites us to a profound reconnection with the self. Remember, don't chase the light. Become the lamp lit in the dark. Allow your inner voice, once stifled by the fear of making mistakes, to now rise, in tune with the universe that incessantly listens to you. The spirituality we seek does not reside in unattainable perfection, but in the courage to embrace our full humanity. May the silence of the soul, once suffocated by fear, now resonate as a song of freedom. True wisdom lies in recognizing that every mistake is a seed buried in darkness, waiting in silence to bloom. And what if the pain you feel today is the portal to the life you've always sought? Symbolic/meditative practice. Find a quiet place. Gently close your eyes. Inhale deeply, feeling the air nourish every cell of your body. As you exhale, imagine you are releasing all the weight of the fear of making mistakes, all the incessant pursuit of a perfection that traps you. Repeat to yourself, I am enough. I am whole in my imperfection. With each inhale, I embrace my truth. With each exhale, I surrender to the flow of life. Allow this feeling of presence and acceptance to expand throughout your entire being. Feel your soul breathe freely. If these words resonated with something inside you, perhaps it's time to take another step on this path of rediscovering your inner truth. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue receiving content that nourishes the soul with presence and authenticity. Share in the comments what resonated with your heart. Your story might be the mirror someone else needed to find. And if you wish to continue on this vibration, watch the video we've linked in the card. It was chosen with care to continue this journey with you. Peace and light.